How you going, everyone? We are in luck today. We are here with Josh Thorpe, the founder of the Oz Agents Travel Group and also the Travel Edjo website as well. How you going, Josh?
I'm very good, thank you, mate. Very, very good.
Mate, it's a privilege for us to have you on our site today, and I'm really excited about this particular interview. Main reason being is because not a lot of people have their finger on the pulse of the industry at the moment, especially at the front end. And you are a very big exception for that, mate. We've been listening to almost all of the interviews that you've been doing on the Facebook page and checking out Travel Edjo. So it's exciting for us, for all of our listeners, to really get a direct perspective of someone on the front line, mate. So, but tell us a little bit about yourself to get started, mate. Who is Josh Thorpe?
Who is Josh Thorpe? Josh Thorpe has just ticked over 15 years in the industry. You know, like many, started my career out after coming back from a bit of a gap year, I guess you could call it, or living in London and living the carefree life of a traveller and cruising around the world with a backpack on, and got home.
How many people in the industry have done that?
Yeah, well, just one or two, I think. And you know, the story goes that, you know, I had $50 cash literally in my back pocket as I got off the plane back into Australia, and you know, I needed a job, and you know, Flight Centre was hiring at the time. It was very lucky that it must have been a low unemployment rate because I guess the tiers or the prerequisites to get in the game were pretty low.
They'll take anyone back then.
They'll take anyone. It was, I think it was good customer service and 2 continents or something like that. And I was like, hey, that sounds like me. And look, it sounded like a good job at the time. You know, maybe tie me over for a bit until I found my real job or real career or whatever it was that I was aiming for. You know, I was 23 at the time, so I obviously knew everything that the world had to offer. So, yeah, you know, after a little while, I guess like many, you figure out that, you know, your passion, you know, converts into something that you're reasonably good at. And then you start that progression into, you know, leadership and, you know, taking, I guess, the career path that many have. I've played in a few different spaces. I've done some sales coaching. I ran a Travel Associates for around 4 years down there in sunny Hobart. But, you know, I guess always knowing that my future was in a little bit sort of, I guess, a larger contribution capacity or wanting to help more people than just those 4 or 5 or 6 people that, you know, worked in my office. You know, whether it was area leading or further from that, I knew that I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more and on a bigger scale than that. So we sold up, we booked a ticket on the boat and headed north to sunny Brisbane, and you know, started that journey of you know, senior leadership. And you know, I was very fortunate to work in the Cruiseabout brand for a little bit, for around 7 months, until unfortunately that brand was no longer a viable one as far as the company was concerned, and you know, ended up back in the red and white in an area leader capacity for a little bit, and then on into looking after travel partners, which was my role up until pre-COVID. You know, basically, you know, as a BDM or BDP, as we like to call ourselves, was really helping people transition from being a bricks and mortar agent or an employee of some sort to becoming an independent mobile travel agent, and opening their own small business and really operating in that space under the Travel Partners brand. And we also played a little bit in the space or heavily in the space in helping independent agencies as well, you know, find a platform that allowed them to you know, to purchase through the Flight Centre Travel Group and to buy their products. So we did that as well. So that was about 8 or 9 months up until pre-COVID that I was playing in that space. And
yeah, right.
Now you're looking at the end result of all of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's very rare that you get someone to chat with. That's why I'm excited about today, is that someone who's actually been in multiple different roles. It might have been one company, but it's so many different roles in that aspect, all the way from the retail agent to the senior leadership, and then also now to the personal, you know, P2P travel agent from home as such. So vastly different. But when it comes to COVID, I kind of feel like we're in biblical times. We've got the BC and we're going to be going into AD pretty soon, right? And how different those two Old and New Testaments are. And I think COVID's going to be a little bit like that for us for a while. We know what you were doing now up to BC, up to pre-COVID. But what about during COVID-19? How has that been for your role? And obviously now you've ventured into Travel Edjo, and the Oz Travel Agent site has gone from 0 members to, 2,500 really quickly. As far as groups are concerned, it's a quick growth, which is amazing. Talk to us about that process. Talk to us about when, BC became AD almost. How did that go for you?
I think, it was, I don't know, it's kind of evolved, organically in a sense. I guess at the time when everything hit the fan, I just got back from Bangkok from a travel partners conference, one of the last conferences that actually went ahead. We managed to miss the cutoff by 7 hours back into Australia before any travellers became required to do a 14-day isolation. So that was us. So I guess we were one of the guinea pigs into that space of what it meant to come home as a traveller and what that looked like.
Down the Sand Road there.
Yeah, well, actually, to be honest, while everything was happening around us, and we had a lot of agents, obviously, were there, and independent agents that had their laptops out and were getting calls from customers, and we could see the sort of panic, I guess, that was starting to come through. And we had Jason Westbury from AFTA with us there as well, and he was giving us updates every hour as things were unfolding around us. So I actually didn't leave the hotel for the whole time that I was in Bangkok for 4 days. We literally just arrived. We conferenced nearly every day, and then at night time we were either socializing in a sense, trying to switch off, but everybody was really just on edge, I guess, of what was going on around them. And then when we got back into the country, going into 14 days isolation, it became pretty clear that our roles as BDPs or BDMs for the travel partners was not really going to be there for very much longer. I guess it just became pretty evident that what we did was not going to be needed for the interim. No one's going to change what they were doing. No one's going to take the leap in the independent world. No one's going to be looking at changing platforms and all the things that we did as a sales team. So when the call came to say that we were being stood down, it wasn't shocking. It was disappointing, and we went through the grief period like everybody else, and I had some pretty depressive, dark days in those early stages. But I guess the whole time I felt like I was probably the least affected person in the travel industry, in a sense that my job went from job to no job, and that was really it. That whereas you say an agent on the front line went from the worst day of their career every single day for 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and then eventually they were stood down. A supplier, is undoing all of their work and all of their efforts that they've done for 12 months leading up to putting, tours and packages and product on, and then they had to unravel all of that and cancel. Reps were being stood down or reduced hours, but still picking up the phone at 2 a.m. in the morning, trying to get people home from overseas. And like everyone around me, all of my mates that work in all different sectors of the industry were all dealing with so much. My ex-area leader, well, not ex-area leaders, but the area leaders that I used to work with quite closely, they were having to stand people down, have these conversations, with team leaders saying, we're closing your store tomorrow. I need you to do all this. I need you to tick all these boxes and complete all of this before we do that. And you have to tell all your staff that they're all being stood down as well. That's everything I saw around me was quite challenging. So being that, I guess I thought, well, how could I help? What could I do? And for me, my wife works for Centrelink or the Department of Human Services, and we were having it
busy at the moment.
A little bit busy, yes. And early on in those early days, we were having a conversation at night, and I was like, I really know that I can contribute here in some way, shape, or form. Can you help me in an unofficial capacity? Because legally she couldn't, but in an unofficial capacity, can you point me in the right direction that I can give the right links, the right information where agents can find what they need for job seeker and later on job keeper. We engaged with a money coach and Phil Guard early on, getting some money advice. Do I get my super? Do I not? How do I get on top of my finances right now? I've just gone from earning X to next to nothing, or even minus for some people. So we really created this sort of survival group in those early stages. It was a support group, and that was kind of where it came from.
Facebook group, you mean?
Yeah. So the Facebook group was just survival. It was, I think we even I can't even remember what we called it. I think it was support for Oz Agents or something. We've changed the name now, and I can't remember what we had it originally, because it's evolved so much. It's changed into what it is now, and it'll probably change again as the industry evolves and goes into its next stages. But yeah, early days came from I felt that although upset with what was happening in my personal situation, still felt like I wasn't anywhere near what was going on around me, and I really just wanted to help, and that's where it sort of came from.
Yeah, great. And look, and from a travel agent who still sells a little bit of travel to someone who trains in travel, I have to admit that site has helped so many people, and it's shown with how fast it's grown too. I mean, look at that, from 0 to 2,500 people pretty quick. I noticed one of your posts the other day. You were like, "I want to welcome the new members," and I was literally scrolling on my phone, which what felt like about a year and a half, but it was at least about 10 scrolls to get through the list of agents who are reaching out for some help and who are in really desperate need of insight now, and especially obviously being in the brand that you were in, a lot of closures and so forth, and stuff would have been hard for them to deal with. So it's amazing that you're a bit of a focal point for them to go to get the information. Talk to us about Travel Edjo as well, because they kind of they're in some ways the yin and yang of each other, right? Like one's about helping people now, and one is about really, from what I can see, helping people in the future as we move, into AD of this COVID-19 section. So talk to us about Travel Edjo for a bit.
I guess in the back of my mind, I've always felt that there's a need for a platform to be somewhere for agents to go to. I've always been a big believer in self-directed learning. I run a little Facebook business page for the Travel Partners guys where I talk about lunchtime learning, which is a concept that I used to have as a team leader back in the stores days, which was, if you're going to be at lunch and you're going to be sitting around, you could be scrolling on your phone and looking through Facebook, or you could possibly be grabbing a brochure or just, grabbing, a travel magazine or something that might help you with your actual job and your actual career moving forward. So I've always been a big believer in self-directed learning and really focusing on growing yourself as much as possible. And I guess even back then, as a experienced travel agent, I would still be the one that was at every breakfast session, every information night, every product launch, every brochure launch. I never used I already know everything as an excuse to not improve my knowledge. So I guess personally, that's always been a big value of mine to continue to keep growing. So Travel Edjo as a website concept really came out of that, I think from a little bit of, always knowing that there's a need for something like that, and then being pushed in that direction based on the group that we were having. And as the group evolved into this kind of more coaching, directing, leadership, strategy, tips, advice sort of concept, it made sense to pull the trigger on something that I've always wanted to do. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of like Inception. People are kind of watching me preach what I'm doing right in front of them if they haven't figured it out yet. Right. We talk about, we're always talking about what could you be doing that you've always wanted to do, whether that was cleaning out your garage or doing something. What are you using your downtime for to do something you've always wanted to do? And for me, that's the Travel Edjo. I'm really doing it right in front of people if they haven't figured it out yet, as I said. So, that's my downtime learning, wherever it goes and however it evolves, whether that's just me learning how to create a website and add content to it and engage in that space. That's my online course, my diploma that we're encouraging people to do, or it may turn into something a little bit bigger and may evolve further. But the self-directed learning, and for people sitting around, not knowing what they could be doing with their time, or, busy people get stuff done. And when you're really quiet or you've got a lot of downtime and the thoughts start ticking over, or you get caught up in some Netflix series or whatever, if you can put something in front of somebody that goes, hang on a minute, maybe this is something I could, get really involved in, or I can see that would benefit me, then, I can only see a benefit to that. So that's kind of where it evolved from. And look, we've got some plans of what that could look like in the future and how that can evolve and what we can do from a, self-directed learning into, certification stuff and maybe some other ideas around, using that platform to get more travel agents on educationals and for meals and self for meals and really use that directed learning to help agents understand who they are as an agent, what they want to be selling, what they want to be known for, what they want to be, really the areas of the industry they really care about, and have like-minded customers, and they can all go on the journey together. If say it's adventure, they really can just focus on that side of the industry, learn everything they need to know about that. We can then help them promote how good they are at that side of things through certification and so forth. And then we can help them, in the future, make sure that their customers are aware of that as well. So that's kind of where it's evolving to, and obviously early stages now, but that's where we're going, which is good.
Yeah, look, it's an amazing site. And I think one of the things that really stood out for me is that, with the migration, I call it a bit of a migration, a herd migration from the percentages of at-home travel agents, whether they're hubbing into a store or whether they're just on their own, that growth has been quite exponential over the last 5 years. And that self-directed learning is going to be more prevalent than before, because it's one of those things that we can't all just leave work in the same surrounding area at 5 o'clock and then just go to the local library and have a function, or the local bar and have a function on one of the providers. It's going to have to be a bit more self-directed, and especially online, because some of these people live an hour away, 5 hours away, out back, and they're still very good agents, but how do they get to a function when they just can't do it? So that's going to be able to solve that for people. So especially with that migration of the at-home travel agent, it's really important.
And I think just on that, Sean, the idea of having to know a little bit about everything, I really feel that that's a little bit old school in as far as the thinking and the mindset of agents.
A bit nice on that too.
Yeah. So
really old school, I believe. Yeah, it could be over.
So with customers being able to research a little bit about everything themselves, really understanding and going, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I believe in. This is how I travel when I travel. And this is what I want to know the most about. And really focusing on that side of the industry will be real key for a lot of these expert, agents coming out the other side and really marketing themselves in a niche area that, that will help them, continue to be successful on the other side of this. So, online self-directed learning or webinars or Zoom film nights, that's definitely a key. And then actually getting out there and experiencing these products and being able to experience them firsthand, I think is the ultimate goal of that. And then obviously being able to pass that experience on to your customers. So how we can, funnel all of that into that one place that will then allow that to happen, that's the end goal, really.
Yeah, absolutely. That niche of the niche is definitely going to play a much bigger part than it has before. Yeah. And I love when you just said you can't be everything to everyone anymore, and that knowing a little bit about everything is definitely possibly a thing of the past, with information being a commodity now, and you can get all the information you need to online. How do you combat that? And you can do that with expertise, real expertise. So well done on that. One of the things I really wanted to talk about today, which I'm excited about, is all these interviews that you're doing. Are you possibly the next? Is it Denton, Andrew? Are you the next? Like they're amazing, right? Everyone's getting used to seeing your face online every day. What are some of the light bulb moments? What are some of the really valuable things that you've heard? Some of the nuggets that you've heard over all these interviews. I know they might be hard on the spot, but what are some of those things that you think our audience, that the travel agent and the travel agency owners right now, if you had to give them a bit of an overview, these are the things that have really stood out for me so far in the interviews, what would they be?
Well, I guess the first thing that stands out is that, the coming together of the industry and the collective want to make sure that this industry is stronger on the other side. That's probably what stood out the most. Every single person I've spoke to loves what they do, whether that's an agent or a supplier or a national account manager or an MD or a founder of a business. Every single person is so passionate about what they do. Yeah. And that's stood out. I think we already knew that, but it's really just come to light. The fact that they're still here, still in the game. People could have walked away from this, March 31st if they wanted to, but they're sticking it out and they're pushing hard to make sure that we're here.
Some people have stood down and they're still doing it. They're still doing it because they know that they want to. They're doing it out of the love of the industry and love of the people. So yeah, you're right, man.
I'm still waiting for my check in the mail for all these interviews, but the same. We're doing it for the love of it.
They're all in the mail.
They're all in the mail. Some specific things, I guess, that keep coming up from an agent, I guess, interaction with customers and how we see that operating on the other side, and I guess kind of combating some of the negative press that's come out over this period is obviously being proactive in front of that stuff. So transparency is probably the new word that we'll see in the travel industry.
That's going to be moving forward. Wow.
That'll be sitting somewhere next to pivot and unprecedented and all those new trending words that just pop up from nowhere. But yeah, transparency I think is going to be key, and agents and suppliers and everybody really being comfortable in that space, being comfortable in how to articulate it, being comfortable in how to be upfront and honest, and with their suppliers, with their customers, with everybody that they're talking with. I think transparency is going to be a real key to create confidence back in the market for our customers and obviously for agents and suppliers and everybody across the board. So I think we'll see a real need for maybe some development and learning and some training and language and sales language and so forth that really comes into play with that. I think for a long time we've all been really good at the inspirational side of things, asking open questions, really finding out what the right things are for people and what's the most important thing to you when you're traveling. And all of those things, it's great. And the best agents are really good at that. But what we've probably not been good at for a long period of time is being open and honest and upfront with whether that's service fees, whether that's cancellations, whether that's, commissions or whatever it is, how we get paid.
Totally.
Refunds, we just kind of we've always been lucky because it's been 3% of people have cancelled a trip, so we know that only 3 out of 100 times we have to have that conversation, and generally out of those 3 people, 2 of them are really okay with whatever happens, and they're like, yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm so sorry I have to cancel this. Oh, I'm sorry, Josh, I know how much work you've put together, but this has just happened, or someone broke up or whatever it was. No one wants to cancel the trip, and then maybe 1 out of 100 is a disgruntled person, and you just kind of swipe it under the table, or it ends up at, an escalated call to someone's manager somewhere. And then they agree to it and say, yes, sorry, and we move on. That was kind of a luxury that we had for so long. And we just don't have anymore. So, I've used the example a couple of times in a couple of interviews. It's kind of like that last scene in 8 Mile with Eminem. It's that, you've got to put it all out on the table first. That if you get to go first in the battle, put it all out on the table, and then there's nothing else to be said. We've said it, it's there. This is how I get paid. This is what happens if we cancel. This is what happens if a pandemic or something happens. This is how it works. If you've got any questions, no, great. We'll move into let's talk about the inspirational side of things. So I think that's probably a key.
Right? We know what it's like to cancel 100% of bookings now.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Right? We know what that's going to look like moving forward, and it needs to be transparent. I could not agree more with you there, mate.
Yeah, and not in that probably service fees. That's kind of underlying. Some people are upfront with them. Some people use markups. Some people, we need some sort of cohesion, some sort of consistency across the industry, whether that's, a guide that comes out from AFTA or something that allows people to go, like the real estate industry, where they've got their set, commissions, their set percentages, and the real estate agent then can decide what they do with that. Generally real estate agents will offer you 20% off or 10% off or whatever it is. They all seem to be able to do that. But yeah, some sort of set, acceptable standard fee that's allowed to be, allowed to be charged. And one other thing I think we'll talk about in a sec is the way commission gets paid. For agents to be able to get an income, and an instant income for the work that they're actually doing, they'll need to be paying that. Those service fees, or customers need to be paying those service fees, so that allows that to happen. So that's come up a lot, and I think that's a real key outcome that we all need to see on the other side of this.
Yeah. One of the talking points that I saw after watching some of the interviews on your site and also speaking with all the people that we speak to as well from our end is that it's a want or a drive from these agents to say terms and conditions need to be the same across the board. We need to have Singapore Airlines and Qantas and all these guys and Trafalgar and Scenic. We need to have all them with the same terms and conditions, at least for the customer and the agent. And I heard an argument the other day, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. Like is that like saying that I think that the cancellation penalties for an Express Travel or an iTalk or a Flight Centre or a Hello World, they all need to be the same, because that makes it easy for the customer. Are we going to be able to really expect all these companies that are based in all these different countries, even though they might be in the same industry, are we really going to be able to expect that they're all going to have the same terms and conditions? Or is it about them being more transparent with them? Where's your take on that, Josh?
Well, I think that's one way to look at it, and that makes sense from their point of view. But say a Hello World, for instance, aren't going to have different terms and conditions for a middle-class customer to a corporate customer, or to a leisure customer to this, it's all well and good to put it back the other way to say, oh, Flights in a Hello World and everyone should have the same terms and conditions, but they're not the ones that are selling to their customers. So, for instance, Qantas would have the travel agent as a customer, some of their other suppliers as a customer, and a direct consumer as a customer. So Qantas, should be able to, or should be directed to have the same terms and conditions across the board, because really if they don't, then it's like me saying, well, I have one terms and conditions for Sean, and I have a different terms and conditions for Carol, and I have a different terms and conditions for this person. If I'm the one that's selling the product, then, or you're using my services, then my terms and conditions should be standard across the board. And I don't believe that that's too hard. So
each product, or each airline or each product should have the same terms and conditions, no matter who they're selling that product to.
Absolutely. No other industry would really get away with that. It's just the complication or the complicated industry that we're in. Everyone's kind of always just went, oh, well, that's just travel. It's like buying an airline seat. $59, $80.
I couldn't stop laughing when you said that. At times I've heard that in the last 6 months. If I had $1 for every time, we wouldn't be needing to do this. That's just how it is.
So, a $59 seat on a domestic flight, then an $89 seat, then a $119 seat. And you imagine trying to put that concept into any other retail business. You walk into, your clothing store and you're about to pick up the $59 jeans, and somebody else grabs that pair of jeans in front of you and you're like, oh, I missed out on the $59. But it's the exact same pair of jeans.
The first 5 pairs of jeans, we're going to sell them at $59. But if you're the 6th customer, they're $79.
Yeah. And if you bring yours back 2 days before you want to wear them, you can get your money back. But if you bring them back within 24 hours of when you wanted to wear them, or after you've worn them, you couldn't get your money back. And all of these mental things that if you tried to relay what we do every day, and our frontline agents try to deal with every single day, and put that somewhere else, it's just mental. So if we then on top of that decide as an industry we're going to make it even more complicated for ourselves by direct customers getting one thing, suppliers getting one thing, frontline agents getting one thing, then no wonder people are confused and frustrated. And where does frustration come from? Confusion. The media and all the negative press that's out there has really come from confusion, and not understanding how things work. But they're not understanding how things work, but the way things work aren't necessarily the easiest way that we could be doing things. No, so we're creating our own confusion and then going, why are people so upset? Well, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't make a lot of sense that we would purposely make things more difficult for ourselves in an already difficult, challenging industry that we're in, when we know that there's other ways of doing it. So
we need to take responsibility for that, don't we? I think back to some of the ways I trained my people 10 years ago, and then 5 years ago, and how it was very different, just before I left the front end retail part, and how it's different even again now. And we're upset at some of these agents for doing things the way that they were doing it, but we created those people. Like they're a fruit of what we sowed.
Absolutely.
So, something about it. I reckon you're spot on there. One last thing I want to ask you about the insights. Or maybe I'll ask you in this way. When any time something goes through a crisis, 3 things normally happen. Either that particular item just comes through that whole process unscathed. It's the same as it was before. it either evolves drastically, it comes through, but it looks very different, or it doesn't make it through. It's just dumped. Could you think of something in each one of those brackets for us, that what is something that's going to be exactly the same? What's something that's really going to evolve and change? And what's something that's dead? What's something that's not going to make it through, do you feel?
Changed from the interviews and the stuff that I've been doing, obviously speaking to a lot of suppliers, a lot of road warriors and reps out there. I think the way that they operate, in their day-to-day basis, will have to change. Like a lot of industries, we've seen what Zoom does. We've seen the necessity of face-to-face stuff not necessarily always being the case, and the reality of the smaller industry that's going to possibly look like on the other side of this, with less bums on seats, possibly less new people coming into the industry, less brand new novices and first timers into the industry. Those sales calls, which generally end up into small little pockets of training sessions with people that may not know about products or so forth, the coffees and muffins, at the back of an office or whatever, with those couple of new recruits, they're just not going to be there. There's just a good chance that, businesses won't be coming back and going on massive recruitment drives, or even being able to bring back some of those, first year, 12 months to, or even up to 2 years, probably consultants, as we rebuild the industry back from sort of a really low base to hopefully be getting back to somewhere near what it was pre-COVID. So I think, the sales calls, how those work, and across probably the industry in a lot of those sort of supplier product driven events, the cocktail parties and the film nights and all of those things that, probably didn't really have a clear ROI on them. It was just a fruitful industry that we all got to play in, where there was an abundance of probably, marketing dollars or, expense accounts floating around that people were able to dip into. I just think that they won't necessarily be there. So the way that a supplier interacts with an agent and the return on investment they will need for those sales calls when they come into a business, the suppliers are really going to be wanting to speak to the manager. They really want to speak to them and say, hey, strategically, how can I help you grow your business, and how can, from our product, really help you, as opposed to assuming the experienced people in the office, know about the product. I'm just here to speak to a couple of new people and let them know, what it's like to be on a certain coach tour or touring, product, for instance. That's my thought from the change perspective. Would you say gone?
Well, gone, and what's going to come through exactly the same too? Like what's not going to change?
What's not going to change will just be the love of the game. That's probably the thing that I've seen the most. The passion for it. Travel, it's there, it's in us, and especially us people here in Australia. We're so passionate about traveling and experiencing the world and exploring everything that's got to offer. And then sharing that with our customers and sharing that with our travel community. That's not going anywhere. It'll look a little bit different, but it's not going anywhere. And I think that for me has resonated when you can hear that travel agents are sitting in that shop, or wherever they are, mobile, doing hundreds and hundreds of cancellations and refunds, and still talking about, what it's going to look like on the other side, and still talking about 2021, and just their brain hasn't stopped except for looking forward. The passion for the game is there. We just got to get through this, and we'll be back to doing what we love every day. So I think that's not going anywhere, which is great to see, and it's what we wanted. And if the group and stuff that we do every day is helping people stay engaged and stay connected with people that are all feeling that way, because I'm sure if an agent sat around going, shit, every agent around me is pulling the pin here, maybe I shouldn't be in it either, then maybe we'll start to lose some of those really great people that we really want to stay in the game. So it's good to see that.
Right.
The one thing I think's gone, and it might sound small, but I think that it's going to have an impact on the way we come out of this, because it's the commission being paid at time of final payment. And obviously lots of companies pay commissions in different ways, whether it's the end of the month or, it could be a small agency that, turns that into a profit. The idea of commission recall has nearly broken, most businesses, or it has broken a lot of businesses out there, and independent agents, mobile agents and so forth. So I believe the commission will be paid after travel. Again, I don't know factual information. No one's talking to me yet in any way, shape or form in official capacity, but I believe that from the conversations I'm having that has to happen, for most people out there, because, another wave could come, another thing could come, something else. We never thought that our industry could be hit so hard like it has been. So we have to be prepared for, something that could come again. And the only way to do that, well, not the only way, but one of the ways to do that will definitely be to hold that commission back until we know a customer's traveled, completed that journey, and they've come home safe and sound with a great experience, and then we can move forward. And it'll take time for that to roll over. It's no different. The same amount of income comes in over a 12, 18, 24 month period, no matter when you pay it. It'll take time for people to get to that point.
By whatever the lead lag time is for.
Yeah. So as an agent starts to think about the borders opening and the bookings that they're making and the 2021 inquiry that comes through, a final payment that's due in February next year might not necessarily mean a payment in March for that booking. If that travel's not until June 2021, that's when they should really be banking on it. So if anybody is thinking of, starting, in an independent capacity, or if they're moving into some other space, think about the income and when that's actually going to arrive. And I know you boys are really good at the KPI side of things and knowing your numbers and where those is and starting the goals. And you guys do a great job in that space, helping your agents. But, understanding after travel, whether that's from a supplier, perspective or just at a business level is the key. So that's my thoughts.
I love that insight, Josh. And I wouldn't mind being a little bit curious on that last point, if that's all right. Just for the agents that are out there right now, do you feel that one of these two things will happen? One, that, you'll get paid that gross amount by the customer, and you'll still pay the net through to APT, and then you'll just hold that money until they travel? Or do you feel maybe that the supplier will now say, all suppliers will say, you have to pay us the full gross amount, and when the client has traveled, we will then send you your commission to get paid? So it won't actually be sitting in your account, it'll be sitting all with the supplier in the future, and then they'll pay you at times. So then it obviously forces the agent to do it that way rather than take the gamble as such. Which one do you feel will happen there, or do you feel it will? What do you think?
I think it'll depend on the company. That's
on the supplier.
Yeah. So the supplier, but also then the platform of the company or the consortium that somebody's working from. So an independent agency, that's purely independent and running their own books. Maybe the supplier's contract with that agent may be that we pay you after. A larger company that may have the ability to make their own decisions a little bit more, or may say, look, we'll only sell your product if you allow us to pay you the net. We need the income to play with all of the other things that we need to make the wheels turn on a larger company. Then maybe they'll play in the other space, but they'll be holding the money back themselves as a head office, as an account keeping sort of, that there's no, I can't really say exactly which way it'll go, but I think that it has to be part of the conversation moving forward.
I agree.
And it'll just depend on the operations of that business, on how that looks.
Yeah. It will be interesting after the terms and conditions chat that we had earlier, that if wholesalers do decide that, they're a big company, we'll give them a net, they're a small company, we won't, then there goes into different rules to different people. So that's a fluid thing, I think, Josh, that's going to happen. But I love the fact that you talk about, what is going to change. The supplier's way to communicate with the people, that's going to have to change quite drastically. That the passion will stay the same, and then commission paid on departure. I think that's a decision that has to be made to safeguard future stuff like this a little bit.
I think the commission stuff really leads into the service fee side of things. because
Totally.
because you know, for an agent that maybe have been a little bit scared of charging upfront service fees, or sneaking them in somewhere, or putting them somewhere, they feel hand on heart justifiable in charging, but you know, to be able to be paid for your work that you're doing at the time, knowing that 6 months could be before you get paid on the actual travel, it has to happen. So the commission stuff will lead into
now on your service fee, your commission on departure.
yeah, that conversation will lead into the service fee side of stuff being an absolute, you know, necessity, you know, to be upfront and honest with it, and what it costs and what it charges, so that, you know, from a business, you could pay, you know, you can pay that $55 per person or whatever it is that people are going to be charging upfront for that service. And, you know, there could be ongoing service fees. It may not be just booking fees anymore. It may be, you know, more change fees and adding fees. And, you know, sometimes you do 20 hours worth of work for a booking. You know,
Absolutely.
we're not lawyers that get to charge $150 an hour for every time we receive an email. You know, we have to, you know, we have to be able to work our way through that process as well. And it'll be complicated, but it's something that's, you know, needed so that our agents and agencies and everybody out there can actually be paid for their time.
Yeah. And look, for agents and agency owners out there, if you're listening to this, you would have got just as much as I have from this particular interview. It's an amazing insight for someone who's on the pulse with the suppliers and the retailers. And we've gone through all the stuff how they can benefit from your sites. Josh, but if people want to get a hold of you and they want to get involved with what you're doing and they want to be, you know, on the platform with you, how can people do that when it comes to the Oz Agents page and also Travel Edjo? How do people get involved with you, man?
Well, it's as simple as obviously jumping on the Facebook group and requesting to join. I pretty much approve anybody. You know, if you're an agent or somebody who supports agents, you know, we're bringing you onto the platform because, you know, we don't want to hear that cliche too much of we're all in this together, but really, you know, the platform's open up to the whole industry, and anybody that wants to join and thinks that they can get some benefit from it, we'll happily have you in the group. The Travel Edjo website itself, you know, it's very simple sign up. Just pop your email address in, you know, pop your Hotmail in there if you don't want to have your business email in there and you don't want to get spammed, because, you know, we do send out an EDM every 4 or 5 days. So, you know, it's up to you. But once you've got access to it, we've got over 50 odd suppliers in there at the moment. It's growing all the time. You just click on a logo, takes you straight to the Travel Agent Hub portal, training resource. Some of the suppliers are still working on their websites at the moment. So even some of the logos will just take you to their Facebook page or to drop boxes with resources. But, you know, huge amount of content in there for people to start, you know, working their way through that self-directed learning and really starting to figure out, you know, where they want to sit as an agent and what do they want to be known for and experts in. So
I know I personally would have loved that as an agent, just have one place to go to get all the information that I need and compare and so forth as well, for your clients. We can give them all the options. We appreciate that. Josh, it's been amazing, mate. And it's been a great insight for all the people who are listening. We let you know that we'd like you to nominate someone else that could possibly help our listeners out there on whatever information you think they have to offer. Who are you thinking of nominating for us to interview next?
Well, look, we've had a few sort of leadership coaches and customer service coaches and people that, you know, very much play in the same space that you do. You know, a lot of guys that have been in the industry and gone out on their own and started their own coaching you know, businesses. You know, we've got Michelle Blyther and Carolyn Giblett, who are absolute experts in the customer experience space, who we've had on, and they were great. Happy to nominate those guys, and I'm sure they'd give up some of their time. You know, Kylie Patch, who's another extremely experienced leadership coach and trainer. You know, she's running her own gig now in the Fearless Way, and absolutely, you know, one of the probably just the best humans, you know, that are out there at the moment. You know, those guys I think would add a huge amount of value to your group and to your agents out there. And you know, if they get, you know, 10% out of the value that I've got from those guys, then I think they're still doing well. So, you know, definitely.
We'll reach out to Michelle and Carolyn and Patchy as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm doing leadership training, I can still hear Patchy's voice.
Yeah.
To this very day. So with that would be absolutely priceless to be on our side, mate. We really appreciate it. If everyone listening today I hope you got as much from Josh as we did, and for yourself, Josh. Thank you so much for all you're doing for the industry. You're keeping people passionate, but you're also keeping them informed, which is really important right now, mate. So from us to you, we say thank you so much, and thank you for being on our page, mate. We really appreciate it.
Mate, it's a pleasure, absolutely. And for all the agents out there, just keep moving forward. You know, you guys are the hardest workers people in the industry. No one's ever worked as hard as they have on the front line. And we all know that, for people that have been on it or, you know, are now a little bit removed from it. You know, you guys are the frontline warriors, and we really appreciate everything you're doing out there. So keep moving forward, and you know, we'll all keep working in the background to help create a better industry and a stronger place, you know, to play for everyone in the future. So, you know, it's exciting.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Josh.
No worries, mate. Cheers.